There is a specific kind of exhaustion that has nothing to do with working too hard. You have felt it. It is that Sunday night or that Tuesday night when you hang up the phone after solving something for somebody else and you just sit there staring at the wall, unable to get up. You did not run anywhere. You did not lift anything. There was no physical effort involved at all. And you are still empty in a way that sleeping does not fix. And the worst part is not even the exhaustion. The worst part is the thing that comes with it. The one you do not say out loud because it sounds ugly. A small anger. Not at them. At yourself. Because you did everything right. You picked up. You listened. You lent. You figured it out. You were understanding. You were the adult in the room one more time. You did exactly what a good person is supposed to do. And you ended the day feeling used. If that happens to you with any regularity, I need to tell you something before we go any further, before any explanation at all. The problem is not that you give too much. That is the lazy conclusion. It is the one the internet sells you every single day, in a pretty caption, in a 30-second clip. Stop giving. Protect your energy. Cut everyone off. Nobody deserves you. Millions of people have taken that advice. They followed it. They ended up alone, and they were still exhausted. Only now exhausted and alone. The problem is not the amount. The problem is that nobody ever taught you to separate two things that look identical and are not. There are things of yours that multiply when you divide them. And there are things of yours that simply run out. And nobody ever showed you which is which. Let me show you that with the image that will run through this entire video. Hold on to it, because everything that follows comes back here. Picture an ancient oil lamp. Not a light bulb, a clay lamp, the kind they used 2,000 years ago, with a wick and a small reservoir of oil inside. If you walk into a dark room with your lamp lit, and 10 other people walk in with unlit lamps, you can light all 10 of them from your flame. All 10. And you lose absolutely nothing. Your flame does not get smaller. It does not get weaker. It does not burn out any sooner. The whole room fills with light, and your light is exactly the same size it was. That is the first thing you own, and it is infinite. It is your attention, your work, your knowledge, your affection, your presence, your time given on purpose, your help in an emergency, your money when you have it, your listening. All of that is flame. You can be generous with that for the rest of your life and come out ahead, because sharing light darkens nobody. Now here's the other half. If somebody asks you for the oil, that is a different transaction entirely. The oil is what makes the flame possible. It is finite. It lives inside. And if you hand over the oil, your flame does not shrink. It goes out. And then the whole room goes dark. And the person who asked for the oil is standing in the dark too. Because oil by itself does not light anything. Oil by itself is just dark liquid in a cup. Nobody wins. Everybody loses. And you, who had enough light for 10 people for the next 20 years, now do not have enough for yourself. This video is about the oil. There are 5 of them. 5 things you should never give anyone. Not if they ask, not if they ask while crying, not if they ask and they are right to ask, and not even if the person asking is somebody you genuinely love. And I have to be extremely honest with you about one thing, because it changes the whole video. Not one of these 5 things is ever taken from you. Nobody rips them out of your hands. There is no robbery here. There is no thief in this story. All 5 are handed over, by you, voluntarily. Almost always in a moment when saying no would have felt a little rude. Almost always to somebody pleasant. Almost always in a conversation that ended well, with everybody smiling. That is why the title has that second half, even if they ask, because the asking is the trap. If it were theft, you would fight. Because it is a request, you hand it over and you feel good about it for about 10 minutes. And then, weeks later, you are staring at a wall on a Tuesday night with no idea why you feel hollow. Before I open the list, I want to introduce you to the man who is going to walk through this video with us. Because the lamp is not a metaphor I invented to sound poetic. It is very close to the complete inventory of everything one of the greatest philosophers who ever lived actually owned. His name is Epictetus. He was born a slave in a region called Phrygia, in what is now Turkey. And the name we know him by is not even a real name. In Greek, Epictetus means roughly the acquired one, the purchased one. It is what was written on that tag. It is as if history had preserved the man by his serial number. He was bought in Rome by a man named Epaphroditus, who was a secretary to the Emperor Nero, which means his owner was a powerful man, part of the innermost circle of the center of the world. Epictetus was lame. There is an old story written down centuries later about how that happened, and I am going to tell it to you at the end of this video, in the right place, because it is the key to the fifth thing on our list. For now, just hold this. He had a ruined leg and he limped until the day he died. He was freed as an adult, and then, already free, already teaching, he was expelled from Rome by decree of the Emperor Domitian, who decided philosophers were a political problem. He crossed the sea, set up his school in a Greek town called Nicopolis, and never came back. A slave, cripple, exile. And his possessions, according to the accounts that survived, were basically these: a sleeping mat, a bench, a clay bowl, and an oil lamp. There is a famous story about that lamp. Epictetus owned an iron lamp, and he kept it near his household shrine. One night a thief came into the house and took it. It was, in all likelihood, the single most valuable object he owned. And his response was to buy a clay one. He said, more or less, tomorrow you will find only an earthenware lamp here, because a man loses only what he actually has. That is not resignation. That is not the shrug of a defeated man. It is a technical statement, almost cold, about what is yours and what is merely near you. This man, who owned 4 objects and a broken leg, who had been the legal property of another human being, is the same man who wrote that there is one thing nobody can ever take from you. Not an owner, not an emperor, not an army. One thing that only leaves if you hand it over. That thing is the last item on our list. Now, before I start, I have to do something this channel does in every video, and in this one it matters more than in any other. I have to tell you what this video is not, because a video called 5 Things You Should Never Give People can very easily turn into a different kind of video. And that other kind is everywhere right now, and it is fooling a lot of people. First, this is not about making yourself scarce so people want you more. There is an entire content industry teaching men and women not to give energy, to wait before replying, to be hard to reach, to manufacture value through absence. That is not philosophy. That is auction technique. And the problem is not even that it is dishonest. The problem is that it does not work. A person being scarce on purpose is running every single decision through somebody else's reaction, which means he's more dependent on the opinion of others than the person who gives too much. He's just pretending otherwise. Second, this is not about cutting people off. There will be no list here of toxic personality types for you to identify and eliminate. I do not like that game, and I will tell you why. The first thing a person does after watching a video like that is start cataloging everybody around them, hunting for the flaw. That does not give you peace. That gives you a radar that never turns off. And a radar that never turns off is a form of anxiety, not a form of wisdom. Third, this is not about giving less. This is the heart of the whole thing, and I want it to be unmistakable. This list does not exist so you can close 5 doors. It exists so you can keep every other door open, because a person who empties himself does not stay generous forever. He stays generous for a few years and then becomes a bitter shell who complains about every single person he ever helped. You have met him. That relative who did everything for everybody and now repeats at every gathering that people are no good and that he learned it the hard way. He did not learn anything, actually. He just ran out of oil. So this list is the opposite of selfishness. It is what makes 30 years of generosity possible, instead of 5 years followed by resentment. Hold on to this sentence, because it is the whole video compressed. This is not a list of what to deny people. It is a list of what you have to keep in order to have anything left to give. And fourth, the most important of all, if you do this to be respected, it will not work. I am going to talk about respect in this video. I am. People will start treating you differently, and I will explain the exact mechanism when we get there. But respect is a consequence. It is what happens on the outside after something has happened on the inside. If respect becomes the goal, you have inverted the whole thing. You are once again making your choices based on what other people will think, which is precisely the disease this video is treating. Fair enough? Then let's go. 5 things. In order, from the outside in, from the most visible to the deepest. The first one is the one everybody hands over without noticing, every single day, and it is the only one on the list that is mathematically impossible to get back. Thing number 1. Never give your time on reflex. The request arrives like this. Hey, you got a quick minute? And look at the engineering in that sentence. It is a work of art. First, that word quick. It is not a minute, it is a quick minute, which is somehow less than a minute, a nearly weightless amount of time, practically nothing at all. Second, it is a closed question. Either you have it or you do not. And saying you do not have a quick minute sounds like a statement about your character, not about your calendar. Third, and this is where the genius lives. The question is only ever about the beginning, never about the end. Nobody has ever once asked, do you have a quick minute? And then another 40, and then 3 follow-up texts tomorrow morning, and then version 2 of this next week. And you say yes. You always say yes, because in that particular second, yes is the cheapest thing in the world. I want you to run a mental test with me right now. It is simple, and it is uncomfortable. Imagine the same person in the same room with the same friendly tone walks up and says, hey, you got $300 on you? What happens inside you? Something wakes up. Instantly. You want to know what for. You want to know when you get it back. You are already calculating whether you can. You are already assembling a polite way to say that right now is not a good time. You do not need courage for this. The mechanism is automatic. $300 trips an alarm that came pre-installed. Now watch this. 3 hours a week for 1 year is 156 hours. 156 hours is almost 7 full days. 7 days of 24 hours, no sleeping, no eating, no stopping. An entire week of your life, every year, handed over in little quick minute increments that you never once added up. And here is the brutal difference nobody taught you. $300 can come back. It can come back from work, from another client, from next month. It can even come back with interest. Money is one of the very few things in life with that strange property of being recoverable. Those 7 days do not come back. There is no mechanism anywhere in the universe that returns a Wednesday. Seneca wrote about this in a way that 2,000 years later still stings. And I need to tell you who Seneca was before I give you the line, because the line changes weight once you know who said it. Lucius Annaeus Seneca was not a monk. He was not writing about time from inside a cave with nothing to do. He was in all likelihood one of the wealthiest men in Rome, enormous fortune, land, influence. And beyond that, he was the tutor and later the political advisor to the Emperor Nero. For years he was, more or less, the man running the empire from behind the throne. Do you understand what that means in terms of a calendar? It means a house full of people waiting for him every single morning. It means political clients, requests, letters, favors, audiences, dinners that were not dinners but negotiations, people pulling at his sleeve all day long wanting a quick minute. It was that man, with that life, who wrote that we are stingy with property and money and utterly reckless with the one thing where being greedy would actually be honorable: time. He wrote that nobody hands out their money to strangers, but that everybody hands out their life. That we are precise about collecting what is owed to us and care less about living. And he wrote something harder still, which is the entire argument in one line. People defend their land with fences and go to court over a single foot of a boundary, but they let anyone at all trespass on their life, and worse, they personally invite in the people who will occupy it. In the very first letter he writes to his friend Lucilius, he opens with an order that in Latin is short and blunt: Vindicate tibi. Claim yourself for yourself. Take yourself back. And then he explains the mechanism of the theft, which is the part that matters to us today. He says some of our time is torn away from us, some is quietly taken, and some simply leaks out. And that the most shameful loss of all is the one that happens through carelessness. Meaning, the part you gave away without ever noticing you gave it. That third one is what we are dealing with here. Now let me make the distinction that actually solves this in practice. And it is not about saying no to people. There are two kinds of given time, and from the outside they look identical, and on the inside they are opposites. The first is time given on purpose. You look, you understand what the person needs, you weigh it against what you have to do, and you decide to give it. Maybe you decide to give more than they ask for. Maybe you drop everything and drive 2 hours in the middle of the night because it matters. That is flame, not oil. That is the most generous thing a human being does, and you lose nothing by it. You gain because you chose it. The second is time given on reflex. You did not decide anything, you responded. The word yes left your mouth before any evaluation happened, because your body learned that saying no produces 1 second of discomfort, and your body is wired to avoid immediate discomfort. Notice that the difference is not in the person asking, and not in the size of the favor. 2 people can give the exact same 3 hours to the exact same cousin, and one walks away light and the other walks away furious. The difference is not in what was given, it is in who decided. Which is why resentment is such a reliable symptom. Pay attention to this, because it is a diagnostic tool that genuinely works. Time you give on purpose never produces resentment, never. You might get tired, but you do not get bitter. Resentment is the signature, the fingerprint of time you gave without having decided to give it. When you catch yourself chewing on, "I did everything for him and he did not even say thank you," the problem is almost never his ingratitude. It is that you handed something over while you were not present for the handover. And now you are trying to bill another person for a decision that was yours. Now the mechanics of the reflex, which is what makes this hard to fix. The automatic yes is not stupidity. It is a trade across time, and it is a trade that looks good at the moment it is made. When you say yes, you receive something immediately, relief. The social tension ends. The person smiles. You are a good person. The room is comfortable again. All of it in under a second. And the cost? The cost is not now. The cost belongs to Wednesday. And Wednesday is an abstract stranger you have not met yet. You are literally financing 1 second of your own comfort with 3 hours belonging to somebody else. Except that somebody else is you, shortly. That is why we say yes to things we would refuse without hesitation if they were happening this afternoon. Next Saturday sounds empty. Next Saturday sounds like it has room in it, like there is time to spare, like that future version of you will be rested and eager. He never is. So what do? I am going to give you 3 practical things, and they are deliberately small because nobody ever does the big ones. First, the answer that is neither yes nor no. This is the direct antidote to the reflex, and it is the most powerful of the 3. When somebody asks you for time, you do not have to say no. You only have to not say yes in that particular second. Let me check, and I will get back to you tonight. That is it. There is nothing aggressive in it. It hurts nobody. It creates no conflict. And what it does is technical. It moves the decision out of the social moment and into a moment when you are alone and able to think. The reflex loses its power the second it has no audience. Seneca said something similar about anger, and the principle is identical. The greatest remedy is delay. Not because delay is wise in itself, but because almost everything that decides on your behalf decides fast. Second, The fulver with a written edge. Most fulvers do not blow up because of their size. They blow up because they have no ending. You do not get tired of helping your friend with his spreadsheet. You get tired of discovering that you are now the permanent owner of his spreadsheet. So the yes gets an edge. I can do today 2 to 4. I will do it this once and then show you how to do it. I can help through Tuesday. Then I have to get back to my own work. That is not coldness. It is the opposite. It is what lets you say yes again 2 months from now without dread. A favor with no edge is a favor people learn to avoid asking you for, and eventually a favor you learn to avoid giving anyone. Third, and this one stings, once a week, add up the time you gave. That is all. Change nothing, cut nothing, refuse nothing. Just add it up and look at the number. Because what protects our money is not willpower, it is visibility. We see the balance. Nobody ever sees the balance on time. Once you start seeing it, the behavior changes on its own, without effort, and that is the only kind of change that lasts. And before I move to the second thing on the list, I need to close a gate, because this is the part of the video most likely to slide into something ugly. This is not permission to become the guy who runs his life on a stopwatch and measures friendship in minutes. Some people hear this and turn into insufferable accountants, answering a text like it is a board meeting, making everyone around them feel like an interruption. That person did not protect his time. He traded exhaustion for loneliness and called it productivity. Given time is one of the most beautiful things a human being does for another. Being there is flame, and flame you can give forever. What this video is taking from you is not the generosity. It is the autopilot. You are not being told to give less time. You are being told to be present at the moment of giving, because time handed over by somebody who is not there is not a gift. It is a leak, and a leak helps nobody. Not even the person who asked. Thing number 2. Never give your peace as rent on somebody else's cause. This one is harder to see, because it disguises itself as love. The request arrives like this: I just need to vent. And it is sincere. It is almost always sincere. The person really is in pain. The voice really is shaking. And you are the one they chose, which is a form of trust and even a form of compliment. So you listen. You listen for an hour and 20 minutes. You help organize the situation. You suggest paths. You calm them down. You say the right things. At the end of the call, they exhale. They thank you. They say they feel so much better, and they hang up. And they really do feel better. That part is not fake. The problem is what is left on your end of the line, because you keep it. You hang up and the thing keeps running in your head. You lie down and think about it. You wake up the next day and it is the first thing waiting for you, and it is not even your problem, it is theirs. You carry it around heavy for 2 days, and the next week they call again. Same problem, exactly the same one. Not one of the things you agreed on got done. And then something very specific happens inside you, and I want to name it, because almost nobody names it. You feel a flash of irritation, and immediately you feel ashamed of the irritation. What kind of person gets annoyed at a friend who is suffering? I am going to answer that right now, and the answer is the core of this second thing. You are not annoyed that they're suffering. You are annoyed because you became the place where the suffering gets stored, and they became the person who drops it off and walks away light. And that is not friendship. That has a more precise name. It is outsourcing. Let me draw the distinction that solves this, because it is fine and it is everything. There is caring with someone, and there is caring for someone. Caring with someone is when the person is under the weight, straining, trying, and you get underneath it alongside them to share the load. That is one of the noblest things a human being does. That is flame. Do it always. Do it for the people you love. Do it for strangers when you can. Caring for someone is when the person steps out from under the weight, sits on a rock nearby, and you stand there holding it alone while they describe how unfair the weight is. And here is the most perverse detail of all. While you are holding it, they do not have to solve it. It is not malice most of the time. It is just that their pain became manageable. They found a system. The system calls every Wednesday night, runs about 80 minutes, works beautifully, and you are the equipment. As long as the system works, the pressure to actually change their life never arrives. You, trying to help, became the reason they do not have to. That is the opposite of helping. That is recurring anesthesia. Epictetus has a line about this that, on first reading, sounds cold enough to be offensive. I will give it to you and then show you why it is the exact opposite of coldness. In the Enchiridion, chapter 16, he talks about what to do when you meet someone weeping over a misfortune, a child far away, a loss, a ruin. He says, do not refuse to go along with them in words, and if it comes to it, groan out loud with them. And then he adds, but take care not to groan on the inside. That sounds like hypocrisy. It sounds like a man with no heart teaching you to fake compassion. But that is not what he is saying, and the difference is technical. Think about a lifeguard. A trained lifeguard goes into the water after a drowning person. He goes in. He does not stand on the sand giving a lecture about personal responsibility, but he goes in a very specific way. He cannot panic, and he never lets the person climb onto his neck. If he panics too, now there are two people drowning. And two drowning people is not double the solidarity. It is double the funerals. His calm is not indifference. His calm is the instrument. It is the only thing he has that the sinking person does not, and it is precisely why he can pull them out. When you go into somebody's crisis and sink alongside them, you did not love them harder. You just reduced the number of people standing in that story from 1 to 0. Marcus Aurelius wrote, in Book 4 of the Meditations, that people look for places to retreat to, the countryside, the coast, the mountains, and that wanting that is a very ordinary thing, because at any moment you can retreat into yourself. He says there is no place quieter or freer from disturbance than a man's own soul. That is not escape. It is the opposite. It is the guarantee that there is a room inside you that is not rented out to anybody. A room with a lock. And it is precisely because that room exists that you can open the rest of the house to people without becoming a hotel. Now, in practice. 3 tools. The first is a single question, and on its own it resolves about 80% of these situations. Do you want me to listen, or do you want help solving it? Ask that next time. And watch what happens. If they say, I just need to vent, good. Now you know your role, and your role is light. You do not have to find a solution. You do not have to take responsibility for anything. You do not have to carry the problem after you hang up. Listening without having to fix is a vastly cheaper task for you. Most of your weight was never their pain. It was the repair job you silently assigned yourself. If they say they want to solve it, then you solve it. And now there is an agreed step, and there is a way to know next week whether the step got taken. And if they say they want to solve it every single week and nothing ever gets done, the question already gave you the information you needed. This is not a crisis. This is a format. The second tool is 3 questions you ask yourself, silently, before you step in. Is this mine to carry? Is this person carrying too? Or did they let go? Do they want help? Or do they want an audience? And before that sounds cruel, wanting an audience is not a crime. Everybody wants one now and then. Everybody has a night where they just need somebody to hear it. The problem is not the occasional audience. It is the audience as a full-time job, and you hired without ever signing anything. The third tool is the simplest and the most ignored. Separate the crisis from the climate. A crisis is an event. It has a beginning, a middle, and above all, an end. In a real crisis, you drop everything. You answer at 3 in the morning. You drive, you sit in the hospital, you stay as long as it takes. No calculation whatsoever. There is no list of 5 things that outranks that. A climate is when the crisis became the permanent weather. It is year 5 of the same subject. That is not rescue, that is a routine, and a routine has to be handled differently, because nobody survives 5 years on emergency footing. People who confuse the two fail in one of 2 ways. Either they handle a real crisis with textbook detachment, which is cowardice, or they handle a chronic climate with emergency energy, and that is the person who disappears at 40, burned out, convinced the entire world is ungrateful. There is something else I need to say about this kind of drain, because it explains why it stays invisible for so long. The emotional weight you carry for other people shows up on no ledger anywhere. If you work 14 hours, your body bills you immediately. Your back hurts, your eyes burn, you know exactly what happened, and you have a word for it. There is even a pill for it. Now, if you spend 6 months being the emotional emergency room for 3 people, there is no symptom with a name. You just slowly get strange. You start avoiding your phone when it buzzes. You feel an odd relief when somebody cancels on you. You get irritated by small things, by traffic, by noise, by an innocent question from somebody you love. You stop wanting to go out, and you explain it to yourself by saying you are becoming more of a homebody. None of it seems to have a cause. So you land on the only conclusion left, that the problem is you, that you are just low. That may be this age, or the job, or a phase. It is not a phase. It is a bill arriving for consumption nobody logged. And there is a question hanging over every one of these stories that almost never gets asked out loud. Who listens to you? Look at the classic structure of it. You are the support beam for 4 people. Each of them has, in you, a place to set the weight down. And you, when you are the one struggling, take it to nobody, because in your role inside that group you are the strong one, and a strong one who complains frightens everybody. That is not a support network. That is a pyramid, and you are the stone at the bottom. And the hardest part is that you built it yourself, brick by brick, always with the best intentions, always out of love, always because on that specific night it looked like the right thing to do. Nobody put you down there. You volunteered on 20 separate occasions, across years, without ever adding up the total. And now the gate, because this item is the most twistable in the whole video. This is not permission to run away from people who are struggling. Not remotely. There is a modern, beautifully packaged version of abandonment that borrows therapy vocabulary to make cowardice sound like self-care. Protecting my energy, not my emotional responsibility. Everyone handles their own. Sometimes that is true. Very often it is just fear with a nicer vocabulary. The Stoic is not the guy who does not get involved. Marcus Aurelius opens the Meditations by thanking one by one the people who formed him, and he writes to himself that we were born for cooperation, like 2 rows of teeth, like hands and feet, and that to act against others is to act against your own nature. That is the opposite of armor. The fine rule is this: you go into the water, you always go into the water. You just never let anybody climb onto your neck, because if you go under, the rescue is over for everyone, including the person you went in to save. Your peace is not a personal luxury you hoard out of selfishness. It is equipment. It is the thing that makes you useful. Whoever gives away their peace does not become more available to others. They just become one more problem in the line. Thing number 3. Never give away the pen that writes who you are. This is the quietest one of all. And in your life, it has very likely been given away for many years already. The request never arrives in the form of a request. It arrives in the form of a diagnosis. You are too sensitive. You are overreacting. You have always been like that, ever since you were a kid. Everybody says that about you. You are not really a leader. You are more of a behind-the-scenes person. Notice that nobody is asking you for anything. Nobody said, "Give me the right to define who you are." The sentence arrives formatted as information, sometimes even as affection, almost always spoken by somebody who has known you a long time. And then you do something that feels like nothing, and that is the most expensive handover in this entire video. You accept the sentence as data, you file it, you repeat it. Years later, you are introducing yourself using somebody else's line. "Oh, I am a very anxious person. I was never good with people. I am the disorganized one in the family." And you say it casually, the way you would state your blood type. It is not your blood type. It is an opinion. And at some point, with no ceremony at all, you handed over the pen. Marcus Aurelius wrote a sentence about this that I consider one of the most uncomfortable in all of ancient philosophy, because it leaves no exit. He wrote in Book 12 roughly this: "It is strange that each of us loves himself more than all other men, and yet gives more weight to their opinion of him than to his own." Read that slowly, because there is something nearly absurd inside it. You are the only person who was present for 100% of your life. Every day, every decision, every time you almost did the wrong thing and did not, every time you were generous with no audience, every time you carried something nobody saw. You have the complete vial. The other person saw, at best, about 4%. And it is that 4%, filtered through their mood, their hurry, their own life, that you adopted as the verdict. You have the whole biography, and you chose to believe the review written by somebody who read the back cover. Now I need to introduce you to the man who wrote that line, because again, it changes the weight of everything. Marcus Aurelius was not a library thinker. He was the emperor of Rome, the most powerful man in the known world at that moment. If somebody insulted him on a street corner, he had literally the power of life and death over that person. And the last years of his life were not spent in a palace. They were spent on the northern frontier, along the Danube, on military campaign, in the cold, in a tent, running a long and filthy war against Germanic tribes, in the middle of a plague that was tearing through the empire. That is the setting in which he wrote the Meditations. And it matters to understand what that book is. It is not a book. It was not written for you, or for me, or for anybody. It has no original title, no audience, no editor. It is the private notebook of a man talking to himself at night, probably tired, probably afraid, trying to talk himself into things. The entire book is, essentially, a man repeating to himself what he already knows and still cannot do. He writes to himself in order to get out of bed in the morning. He writes to himself in order not to lose his temper with colleagues. And he writes over and over about not caring what people are saying about him, which means the most powerful man on earth needed to write down by hand at night inside a war tent a reminder not to hand over the pen. Hold on to that the next time you feel weak for spending 3 days chewing on a comment. If Marcus Aurelius needed to write that to himself, the problem is not that you are fragile. The problem is that this is human, and human things are handled with practice, not with shame. Epictetus goes at it from a similar angle, but harder. At the end of Enchiridion, he lists the marks of someone actually making progress, and the mark he gives is this: the person expects praise from nobody and fears blame from nobody. He does not talk about himself as though he were somebody important. If he is criticized, he does not rush to defend himself. He examines it. And now the practical part, which is what separates this from arrogance. So pay close attention, because this is the most misunderstood point in the video. Not giving away the pen is not refusing criticism. There is an enormous difference between two sentences that look like siblings. You were late 3 times this month. You are irresponsible. The first is data, a verifiable fact with a date and a number about something you did. Take it. Thank them for it, actually, because it is free information about a behavior of yours that is costing you. People who give you that kind of sentence are almost always on your side. The second is a verdict. It does not describe a behavior. It declares an essence. It does not say what you did. It decrees what you are, and it does so permanently. Fact, you accept and work with. Verdict, you hand back. And handing it back does not have to be out loud in front of everyone with a speech. Most of the time it happens entirely inside your own head, in silence, and nobody sees it. It is you hearing the verdict and not filing it. It is you finding the fact buried inside it, keeping the fact, and letting the verdict leave with the person who brought it. Now the other side of the coin, and nobody talks about this, whoever gives the pen away for criticism gives it away for praise too. It is the same pen. There is only one. If other people's opinion defines your worth when it is negative, It defines your worth when it is positive. And then you are dependent. You need a dozy. You need recognition in order to function. You need to be noticed. You need to be thanked. You need a comment. And this is where the third thing connects back to the first two, and the video closes a circuit. Why did you give time on reflex? In most cases, so that you would not become, in somebody's eyes, the person who does not help. Why did you carry a weight that was not yours? Very often to maintain an image. I am the one everybody can count on. Which means the first two handovers are usually the price you are paying to buy back a pen you already gave away. You are working to maintain a reputation that somebody else administers, and that never ends. Never. Because the jury changes its mood. The jury forgets. The jury has its own problems. And the jury swaps out members without telling you. Practice. 3 things. First, the list of 3 people. Write down today, on paper, the names of up to 3 people whose opinion of you genuinely counts. 3 maximum. And the criterion is not intimacy, not blood, not job title. The criterion is this: has this person ever told me a truth that cost them something to say? Because someone who only praises you is selling you comfort, and someone who only criticizes you is working through something of their own. The opinion that counts belongs to the person who paid a price to tell you the truth, because that price is the only proof that the point was you and not the audience. Everybody else in the world still gets to have opinions, and that is fine. They simply do not carry authority. You listen, you consider, you move on. Second, a 4-word question. Every time a sentence about you knocks you down, ask, is this fact or verdict? If it is fact, what exactly do I do about it tomorrow? If it is a verdict, who signed it? And why does that signature count for anything? Third, write your own paragraph. This looks like a self-help exercise, but there is a technical reason for it, and the reason is this. If you have no definition of yourself, you do not reject other people's definitions. You just rotate between them. Without your own paragraph, the pen stays lying on the table, and whoever walks by picks it up. So write it down, for real, who you are trying to be, the 3 or 4 values you do not negotiate, and how you would know at the end of an ordinary day whether you acted in line with them. That is the real test, not what people felt about you, what you did. And the gate, because this one slides too. Not giving away the pen is not becoming the impermeable guy who listens to nobody, who answers every criticism with, that is your problem, who confuses stubbornness with autonomy. That man does not own his judgment. He just swapped the jury for a mirror, and a mirror is the worst judge alive, because it agrees with everything. A wall with no gate is a tomb. The goal is not that nobody gets in. The goal is that the door has a lock and that the key is on the inside. Thing number 4. Never give your word when the answer is number. This is the one that destroys the most relationships, and almost nobody identifies it as a problem, because it is made out of generosity. The request arrives like this: can I count on you? Or like this: you will do this for me, right? Or, in the most expensive version of all, I just need somebody to co-sign for me. And the answer leaves your mouth before you exist in the sentence. A yes, a round, warm yes with no edge, no deadline, no condition. And here's what I need you to understand, because it is counterintuitive. That yes is not generosity. It is fear wearing generosity's coat. You did not say yes because you wanted to do it. You said yes because the alternative, in that instant, was watching a shadow cross somebody's face. 1 second of disappointment. 1 awkward pause in the conversation. And you traded. You traded that uncomfortable second for 6 weeks of your life, and you walked out of a room feeling like a good person. Now let's talk about what happens next, because nobody tells this part. The false yes is never delivered like a true yes. Never. It gets delivered in a very specific way, and everyone has been on both sides of it. It gets delivered late. It gets delivered half done. It gets delivered with an apology. It gets delivered with that message about sorry for the delay, crazy week. And above all, it gets delivered with a resentment the other person can feel, even if they cannot name it. And now look at the final accounting. If you had said no on the spot, they would have been disappointed for 2 days and then found another solution, which probably existed. Because you said yes, they stopped looking. They counted on you. They arranged their life on top of your word. And then you delivered late or badly or not at all. Your yes cost them more than your no ever would have. That is the line that closes this item. A no said early is a gift. A yes that turns into a no halfway through is a trap. Epictetus has a passage about this in the Enchiridion that is short and surgical. He says that if you take on a role beyond your capacity, you disgrace yourself in that one and you lose the role you would have played well. Think of it as an actor on a stage. He takes the lead out of vanity or to please the director, and he is a disaster in it. But the loss is not just the lead. It is that he also did not play the supporting role he would have been excellent in, and which now belongs to somebody else. Every yes you give is a no you gave to something else, always. There is no free yes because there is no infinite time, no infinite energy, no infinite attention. When you say yes to your brother-in-law's project, you are saying no to your Saturday, and maybe to your kid, and maybe to your own work. You just do not see the no because the person who received it was not in the room. Seneca wrote an entire treatise on this subject called On Benefits, and it is one of the strangest and most modern texts of antiquity because he spends page after page arguing about what actually makes a favor, and his conclusion is this: what decides it is not the object handed over, it is the spirit it was handed over in. He says the man who hesitates too long, who delivers dragging his feet, who delays, who makes a face, who makes the effort visible, that man gave nothing at all. He says it plainly: he who gives reluctantly loses the gift. A benefit granted unwillingly is not a benefit, it is a stone. You have received one of those. Everybody has. It is the favor that arrived with a sigh. It is the help that came bundled with a comment about how rough the week has been. It is the loan that came with a summary of the lender's financial situation. You received it, and you ended up worse off than if you had received nothing. Because now, on top of the problem, you owe a moral debt. So look at the symmetry. When you say yes without meaning it, you are doing exactly that to somebody. You are handing over a stone and calling it bread. Now I have to talk about a specific variation of this fourth thing, because it ruins entire lives, and it is the most literal version of even if they ask. Your name as a guarantee, co-signing, putting your signature under somebody else's debt, lending your company's name, putting yourself on a proposal to lend credibility to something you do not control, referring somebody at work because they kept asking, not because you believe in them. That is not giving money. If it were money, it would be simple. I give what I can afford to lose, and it is over. That is giving your word about the future behavior of another human being. It is guaranteeing something that is not, and never will be, under your control. And look at how directly that violates the most basic principle in stoicism, the one Epictetus puts in the very first line of the Enchiridion. Some things are up to us, and some are not. What is up to us is our judgment, our will, our own actions. What is not up to us is the body, reputation, office, and everything done by other people. When you co-sign, you are making a formal promise in the wrong column. You are giving a guarantee on something that is not yours. Which is why these stories almost always end the same way. You lose the money, and you lose the person along with it. You lose the friendship, you lose the brother, you lose the in-law, and on top of it you become, in the family's official history, the one who came after them about money. If you want to help, and it is a beautiful thing to want, there is a clean road. Give what you can afford to lose, and consider it lost the moment it leaves your hand. You helped, it is done. It does not become a debt. It does not become a collection. It does not become resentment at some future birthday. What you cannot do is guarantee something you do not govern. that is not generosity. It is a bet with the relationship as the chip. And here, a note this channel cannot skip, because stoicism gets systematically confused with passivity. None of this means you stop helping. None of this means you stop helping. Marcus Aurelius wrote that what does not benefit the hive does not benefit the bee, and he took that seriously his entire life, running an empire through war and plague, sick and never having wanted the job. Commitment is the material every worthwhile thing is built out of. Marriage is commitment. Partnership is commitment. Raising a child is the most absurd commitment in existence, and nobody asks for a receipt. The rule is not to give your word less often. The rule is that your word has to be worth something. Before the tools, I want to give you 3 questions to ask before you give your word on anything large. They are annoying to answer, and that is precisely why they work. The automatic yes does not survive an annoying question. First question: would I do this if this person would never know it was me? That one is a motive detector. In 2 seconds, it separates what you want to do from what you want to be seen doing. If the answer is yes, you are acting from conviction, and conviction survives the day it gets hard. If the answer is no, you are not doing a favor. You are buying an image, and a bought image has a monthly fee. It will have to be paid again next month, and the price always goes up. Second question: am I promising something that depends on me? Notice the precision. It is not, do I really want this to work out? It is the result I am guaranteeing inside my own hands? I will study with you 4 hours a week. Depends on you. I guarantee you will pass. Does not. I will speak well of you in there. Depends on you. I will get you the job. Does not. I will lend you 2,000. Depends on you. I will co-sign. Does not. Because somebody else is doing the paying, and what you are guaranteeing is their future behavior. Nearly every broken promise in the world is a promise made in the wrong column. It is not people lying. It is people guaranteeing what they do not govern. Third question: will I still want this next Tuesday at 7 in the evening in the rain? Do not ask whether you want it now. Now is easy. Now the person is in front of you. Now there is emotion in the room, and the emotion is paying the bill. Ask about the ordinary Tuesday. No emotion. Tired. Other things already late. The novelty long gone. If the answer is no, your yes is not a commitment. It is an emotion with a short shelf life. And the other person is about to arrange their life on top of a feeling of yours that has already evaporated. Practice. 3 things, and the first is almost a mechanical trick. First, never answer a large request in the same minute. Again, it is the same antidote as thing number 1, because the enemy is the same: speed. I need to think. I will get back to you tomorrow. A request to co-signing, to go into business, to take on a long project, to change course, none of them require an answer in 30 seconds. And anybody who demands an answer in 30 seconds has just handed you, for free, the most important piece of information about the deal. Second, a completed no has 3 parts, and only 3. The refusal, clear and short. 1 reason, exactly 1, no novel. And 1 thing you can actually do: I cannot co-sign. I do not do that for anybody. It is a rule of mine, and it is not about you. But I can help you put the paperwork together, and I can give you $300 that you do not have to pay back. Notice what that does. No lie, no invented excuse, no vanishing act, no cowardly "let me see and I will let you know" that is never followed by anything. And there is a real offer, sized to what you actually have. Third, if you already gave a yes, that was a no. Undo it early. This one is uncomfortable, and it saves the most relationships. The next day, call and say, "I said yes on impulse yesterday, and I am not going to be able to deliver this the way you deserve. I would rather tell you today than leave you stranded in 3 weeks. It will be a bad phone call. It will last 4 minutes, and it will prevent months of damage." And the closing gate on this item, which is a sentence I want you to take with you: A yes that could never have been a no is not a yes, it is noise. If people know deep down that you say yes to everything, your yes stopped carrying information. It became a sound you make when somebody asks you for something. The person with a real no has a yes that means something, which is why people with clear limits are in practice the ones most trusted. Not because they give less, because when they say they will do it, it is done. Thing number 5. Never give away your will. We have reached the last one, and it is different from the other 4. The first 4 are things you have. This one is the thing you are. It is also the only one where the request is never spoken out loud. Nobody is ever going to walk up to you and say, "Hand me the controls of your inner life." It does not work that way. That request is made inside the language. And once you start listening for it, it is in almost everything we say. "He ruined my whole day. She made me lose it. You made me act like this. That meeting destroyed my week. Look what you made me do." It sounds like a figure of speech. It sounds like just a way of talking. It is not. Every one of those sentences is a deed of transfer. It is a document in which you publicly declare where the key to your inner state is kept. And in every one of them, the key is in somebody else's hand. Take the most common one. "He made me lose it." If he makes you lose it, then he owns the switch. He decides when you are calm and when you are outside yourself. You have become a machine another person operates. And the worst part is that this person does not know he has the remote, does not want it, and probably will not remember your name tomorrow. And here I have to close the circle I opened at the beginning of this video with the man and the lamp. I told you there is an old story about Epictetus and his leg. I am going to tell it now, and I have to be honest with you. It comes from an author writing more than a century later, and plenty of historians doubt it happened that way. It may have been an illness. The story may have grown in transit, the way stories do. But it survived 18 centuries, and stories survive for a reason. They survive when they say something people recognize as true. The story goes that his owner, as a joke, purely for entertainment, began twisting his leg, and Epictetus, without changing his tone of voice, is supposed to have said, "If you keep going, you will break it." The man kept going, and the leg broke. And Epictetus, still in the same tone, is supposed to have said, "Did I not tell you it would break?" That story is unbearable once you understand it correctly. It is not about pain tolerance. It is not about being tough. It is not about not feeling. It is about a man being tortured for somebody's amusement, a man with no legal power, no protection, no rights, a man who was the property of another human being, and who even in that position knew exactly where the board of what was his ran. The leg belonged to the owner. Legally, it did. His body could be sold, branded, chained, broken. The judgment about it could not. And that is the central argument of everything Epictetus taught afterward. He said, there is a faculty, a part of you, which he called proheresis, which is the capacity to choose, to assent, to judge, to decide what a thing means and what you are going to do about it. And he said that this part, by its nature, cannot be blocked or compelled by anything external. His most famous line about it goes like this: "You can chain my leg, but not even Zeus can defeat my choice." That is not bravado. It is a technical description. He is saying there is a region of human experience where force does not operate, because force is not the currency there. An army can take you to prison. It cannot make you conclude that your life is over. A person can humiliate you in front of 30 colleagues. They cannot make you conclude that you are humiliating. Which is exactly why Epictetus hammered so hard on something that today sounds like word games, but is the entire mechanism. It is not things that disturb people, but their judgments about things. Marcus Aurelius wrote the Operational version of that, and it may be the most useful paragraph in Meditations. Take away the judgment, I have been harmed, and the harm is gone. Take away the harm, and the damage disappears. And elsewhere, he writes an image I find even more beautiful. Things stand outside the soul, still. unmoving. They do not come in on their own. The disturbance comes only from the internal verdict about them, meaning nothing enters you without a signature from you. Which brings us to the hardest point in this entire video, and I am going to say it without softening it. Nobody takes these 5 things from you. All 5 are handed over, and that goes double for the 5th. There is no correct verb in English for what the other person does, because the other person does not do it. They speak, they act, they disappoint, they betray, they shout, they ignore. All of that is raw material. It is event. It is something that happened out in the world. The conversion of that into my week is ruined, happens inside, with your pen, with your signature. I know what this part sounds like. It sounds like I am telling you it is your fault. It is not, and the difference is large. Fault is about what happened, and what happened was very often done to you by another person with no chance for you to defend yourself. This is not about fault. It is about jurisdiction. It is about where the thing that was done to you ends and the thing being done now by you inside your own head months later at 3 in the morning begins. The first part was never in your hands. The second one is, and it is the only part that can still change. And there is a line from Epictetus about this that is, in my opinion, the most dangerous of them all, because it turns an abstract subject into a concrete inventory you can take tonight. In the Enchiridion, he writes, roughly, whoever desires or avoids things that are not in his own power cannot be free, and is necessarily a slave. And then he closes with a line that finishes it. Whoever has power over the things you want to obtain or over the things you want to avoid, that person is your master. Stop on that, because it is not poetry. It is a test. It does not matter what your contract says, or your passport, or your bank balance. The question is, who today controls access to the thing you most want or to the thing you most fear? If what you most want is approval, then whoever distributes approval is your master. And he does not even have to know it. If what you most fear is being spoken badly of, then whoever speaks is your master, and the leash is long enough that you think you are walking on your own. If what you most fear is a disapproving look from your mother, or silence from your boss, or a comment from your group, that is where the lever is, and the lever works because you installed it yourself. Epictetus had standing to say this because he knew the literal version. He was another man's property. Someone legally owned his body. And the conclusion he reached, and taught for the rest of his life, is the most uncomfortable one there is. There are men free by law who are more enslaved than he ever was. Because the chain on his leg was visible, it was iron, and it belonged to somebody else. The chain on most people is made of the desire for approval, and it is operated by them. One of them you can see and hate. The other one you call your personality. How do you train this? 2 practical things, and both are small. The first is a change of vocabulary, and it is not a nicety, it is mental engineering. Stop saying he made me lose it. Say, I got angry when he did that. Stop saying she ruined my day. Say, I spent the day thinking about it. It is not pretty, it is not positive, it is not motivational, it is just accurate. And what happens is that the second version puts the key back inside the house. You cannot fix something you describe as being in another person's hands. The right word is the first step of the repair. The second is the gap. Between the thing that happens and your response, there is a space. It is small. Sometimes it is half a second. But it exists, and it is the entire territory of human freedom. Training that gap is not a metaphor. It is physical practice. One breath before you answer the message. Not replying to the aggressive voice note right now. Leaving the written reply saved and unsent for an hour. Standing up from the chair before you speak. Every time you use the gap, it gets wider. Every time you run it over, it gets narrower. It is training, exactly like muscle. And now I have to talk about respect, which is probably what brought you to this video. and I have to do it carefully, because this is the most important gate on this entire channel. Yes, this changes how people treat you. It really does, and it changes fast. And I will tell you exactly why, with no mysticism, no law of attraction, no energy. People adjust their behavior to what produces results. That is not malice, it is how every social animal functions. If a request for a quick minute always turns into 2 hours, the request keeps coming. If a provocation always produces a reaction, the provocation continues. If handing you their crisis always works, more crises will arrive. Nobody is conspiring. People simply walk where the path is open. And there is a second reason, deeper than the first. Bitterness leaks. A person who has emptied himself for years does not just get tired, he gets subtly demanding. A tone appears in his sentences, a remark about everything he has done for people, a faint accusation in the way he helps. And people feel it, even when they cannot explain it. They start to avoid him. And in his head, that becomes the final proof that people are no good. When you stop emptying yourself, the bitterness dries up. And what is left is a person who helps without invoicing, because he helped by choice. Nobody avoids that person. Everybody looks for that person. But now, I have to close the gate, and this is the most important sentence I will say in this video. If you do this list in order to be respected, it does not work. And that is not a moral warning. It is a logical impossibility. Look at what happens. If your goal is to be respected, then your measure of success is once again in other people's hands. You will be checking, measuring, watching to see whether it is working, whether she noticed, whether he treated you differently. Meaning, you handed over thing number 3, the pen, trying to win thing number 5. The books do not balance. You cannot buy autonomy and pay for it with dependence. You keep these 5 things because it is the right thing to do, because it is what lets you stay useful for 30 years instead of 5, and because a life in which you do not own your own will is, quite literally, the ancient definition of slavery. Respect comes afterward, and it comes on its own, the way a shadow follows a man walking in the sun. If you chase the shadow, it runs too. Now let me put the 5 together, because they are not 5 separate rules. They are one thing seen from 5 distances. The first was your time, which is literally what your life is made of. It is not a resource you spend in order to live. It is the raw material of living. You never actually run out of time to do things. You run out of life, and you call it being busy. The second was your peace, which is the state in which that time can be used for anything at all. Time without peace turns into nothing. It is waking hours spent inside a whirlpool. The third was the pen, who writes who you are. Because time and peace in the hands of a man who defines himself by other people's opinions will both be spent maintaining a reputation somebody else administers and revises whenever they feel like it. The fourth was your word. What your voice is worth when you say you will do something. It is the bridge between your inner world and the world of other people. And it is the only asset that takes 20 years to build and 15 minutes to lose. And the fifth was your will, the part that chooses, the part that signs, the part that, in the end, decides what all of this means. Notice the order, because there is a logic in it. Each one protects the one below. If your will is yours, your word is firm. If your word is firm, you do not need approval. If you do not need approval, your peace stops being currency. And if your peace is yours, your time stops leaking. And if you lose them one by one from the bottom, you will eventually reach the top. It always gets there. That is why the person who cannot say no to a quick minute ends up 10 years later as a person who no longer knows what he wants from his own life. That is not an exaggeration. It is the same pipe from one end to the other. Now come back with me to the lamp, where we started. You can light 1,000 lamps from your flame and lose nothing. Nothing. Your light does not dim. It does not weaken. It does not burn out sooner. So give the flame. Give a lot of it. Listen to the person at 3 in the morning. Drop everything and drive 2 hours. Teach what you know to somebody who does not know it. Lend what you can afford to lose. Show up at the funeral, at the hospital, on moving day, on the bad day. Be the person who shows up. What you do not hand over is the oil, because handed over oil lights nobody. It becomes a cup of dark liquid in the hands of someone who will not be able to see with it either, while you, who used to light an entire room, stand in the dark alongside them. Nobody gains anything from your darkness, not even the person who asked for it. I want to close by showing you 3 people. You know all 3. The first one gave everything. He was the most generous man in the family, the one who fixed things, who lent, who picked up the phone, who always said yes. And today he is that bitter person who, in any conversation at all, finds a way to remind everyone of what he did for them and how nobody ever repaid it. And the sad part is that he is factually correct. He did do it. Nobody did repay him. He just never understood that he was not giving light, he was pouring out oil, and that when the cup ran dry, what was left was resentment, which is the last thing a good person turns into when there is nothing left. The second one learned the wrong lesson. She watched the first one, got scared, and closed everything. She has a whole vocabulary for it now. She talks about boundaries, about energy, about priorities, about not taking on what belongs to other people. Nobody uses her, and nobody looks for her either. She guarded the oil so well that she never lit the wick, and an untouched cup of oil in a dark room is exactly the same as an empty one. From the outside, the difference is 0. Both rooms are dark. And there is a third one who is rare, and who is the person this video is trying to build. That one gives more than the first 2, far more. She is generous in a way that is almost alarming. She shows up, she helps, she lends, she carries alongside, she is there. And she does not lose herself, because she knows exactly, with surgical precision, which 5 things are not hers to give. She is not hard. She is intact. And that is why she will still be standing 30 years from now, still helping, without a drop of bitterness in her voice. If you had to take one sentence out of this video, take this one. This is not a list of what to deny people. It is a list of what you have to keep in order to have anything left to give. And if something here landed, write it in the comments. Not as a favor to this channel, but as a signal to yourself. What is mine to give, I give freely. What holds me up, I keep. Use your own words if you prefer. What matters is not the sentence. It is the act of writing down something you want to be true and then having to live with it. And do one more thing for me. A month from now, come back to this video. Not to rewatch all of it, just to check which of the 5 you handed over again. Because you will. Everybody does. This is not a decision you make once. It is something you recover every month. The same way Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, had to write down again at night, inside a tent, things he had already known for 20 years. He was not writing them down because he had forgotten. He was writing them down because knowing is not enough. If you made it this far, you are already in the minority. Sitting through an hour of something that makes you uncomfortable is, by itself, the kind of thing most people will not do. Subscribe, because here we take 2,000-year-old philosophy and use it as a tool for a mind that is strong, quiet, and hard to knock down. Welcome to Shadow and Wisdom. Until the next video, walk in the shadow without fear.